mean, and that's the thing that you're trying to do as a coach is get that bond and that connection so that way, they're going to fight through whatever they need to fight through to make that happen because they
Mhm.
have connected with their teammates. If you don't have that connection, then you get a bunch of people out there just working for themselves. And, a team's never going to function properly with that kind of attitude.
All right, welcome to another episode of Beyond Coaching. Got a new friend with me from Tonkawa, Oklahoma, Joey Reinart. Joey, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure and an honor to join you today.
Cool. Why don't you share with everybody? Tell us a little bit about your career path, coaching background, and then what you're doing now.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it all starts, back in high school. I actually volunteer coached for the local summer league team, and it was something that I always knew I was going to coach because I wanted to be attached to sports somehow, and knew pretty early on I wasn't going to be, a professional player. So I wanted to attach myself somehow to sports, and teaching and coaching was my avenue for that. I started in high school, like I said, doing some little league baseball, and it was really fun. The guy that was the head coach, he'd have to go and be gone for harvest. So it ended up being my team early on. And so I just kind of naturally gravitated into that role of coach, and the kids enjoyed being around and had some success doing some things in the summer. And I felt like it was just something I wanted to continue in my career. We had a lot of people, back in the early to late 90s, just didn't feel like education was the correct path. Weren't going to make a lot of money or things like that. And so that people were trying to talk you out of going into education. Go do something where you can make money. Go do something where you can set yourself up for the rest of your life. Well, it just wasn't. That didn't work for me. This was always something that I wanted to do. And so during college, I volunteered doing some baseball coaching with the AAA Legion team in Perry, and I also uh, drove during basketball season to coach at a local to the area of Stillwater basketball team. Coached for Pawnee High School for a couple years, and just doing everything I could to get my foot in the door and learn as much as I could about the profession, about the ins and outs of education, and being able to set myself up for a job whenever I graduated. Graduated from Oklahoma State University, and at that time I had a connection to Perry, so I got a job at teaching and coaching at Perry, and they literally made me coach every single sport we had. I coached. Was hired initially as a football coach to help on the football staff, and get there the day of signing my contract, and they said, "Hey, we need you to coach middle school softball." So I was like, "Okay, here we go." And so I did that, and I'd run over to football practice as fast as I could to be involved in that. Coached girls basketball. At the same time, I was coaching middle school boys basketball, middle school girls basketball. I was a high school girls assistant, and they also had me coaching middle school baseball. So it was a pretty
Thanks.
loaded schedule for I guess when you're young, they just figure they can dump it all on you and you take it and roll with it.
There's not a lot of spare time in that schedule.
Not a lot, but it was good. It was good for a young guy like me to make sure I had, something to do all the time. And, just my focus was school and, coaching nonstop. So spent a few years there and just looked for a path that was going to let me progress my career. I was probably more football focused than anything, and I felt like I was really good at what I was doing. Um, I got as soon as I got moved to the football staff, I was in charge of the defense right off the bat. So second year into coaching, defensive coordinator, a lot of responsibility. I felt like I was really good at what I was doing. I learned a lot in those couple years that I was there. I wanted to advance, so got an opportunity with Bruce Troxel out of Oklahoma City to coach the offense at John Marshall High School, and I was like, well, if I'm going to be a head coach in this deal, I want to do both sides of the football and get some experience. And so went there. Spent a year there in a situation that helped me learn how to handle and approach kids, probably more so in that year than any other years combined. Just how to handle different situations of kids and their backgrounds. It was really impactful to me.
Mm.
Um, got that experience, learned a lot about planning and structure and, disciplining kids and how to handle that. And then the opportunity came up to take the head football coaching job at Chisholm High School in Enid. And I spent 12 years doing that. Kind of,
Still pretty young when you got the head job. How old were you when you got the head job?
well, I was 29.
29.
29. And so, yeah, it was a different experience for me too, because felt like I was pretty young. Our staff was relatively small. We only had 4 coaches on staff, but when I came into that, the 2 assistants were older than my dad was, and so it was you get into a situation where some coaches have been there, they're set in their ways, and a young guy with different ideas and stuff. It wasn't the easiest kind of road to travel for me. It had been traditionally a place that was very basketball oriented. Had some success in track. Hadn't had hardly any success in football at all. In the '90s, they had a team that made it to the second round of the playoffs. And that was the team that everybody around the area was like, "Oh, they were really, really good." And I looked at it, I was like, "Wow, that is a long time ago to have not progressed to the playoffs again since then." But I always thought it was a great place because traditionally the people around there were really good. You had smart kids, fairly athletic kids. I coached against them before, so I thought it was a chance to build something pretty solid, and that's really what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, was just have a program, be influential to that, so that you can consistently stay somewhere and be a part of that
Mhm.
community for a long time. We started out really, really bad. We won 3 games in 3 years, uh, and it was a struggle. Culturally, it was not good. The football kids, they were a little tougher kids around that school, and they kind of ran people off, and so the numbers were very bad. We had 26 the first year on an 11-man football team, and then the next year we had 22, and we finished the
Ooh.
year. But after that, we we sensed that there was, bright future was coming. We had to make sure we were taking care of the kids properly. We had to make sure that they knew we weren't there just for ourselves and just for the sport of football. And so we started kind of investing in those younger kids and built our numbers up. That next year we had 36, and then the year after that, we went to almost 50. And then for 3 or 4 years, and towards the later stages, we had 60 plus kids on our football team. So, um,
Hmm. Let me learn more about that real quick. So
yeah,
when you say investing, what did that look I mean, what'd you do differently? I mean, you more than doubled the size over 4 years of the team. How'd you make kids feel cared for?
yeah. So there was a transition with some coaches there on staff that were basketball and different things like that. And we all kind of gravitated towards the same thing, that we wanted our kids to be able to be trained physically in a better way. And so I started getting on board with the basketball coach at that time. And then there was a transition where we had to hire a new one. And so at that point, I was like, you know what? We're going to step in here and we're going to put our foot down, and we're going to say, no matter what, if you're in athletics and you're going to be on any team at this school from now on, you're going to train to be the best, and we're not going to accept anything less than that. And at first, it kind of like shocked people because they're like, "Whoa, we haven't really done these types of things before." But um, we set them down, and you said, You're not just going to be good enough to be the best person on the basketball court. You're not going to be. We're not going to let you just train to beat out the next guy behind you. We were going to push them to be better, and with that group of kids, it just took off.
Hmm.
So those low numbers we had in football, I gained 3 basketball kids that made a significant impact on our football team, because we treated them. That's the same thing we told them, that you're going to be the best. We don't care what you do, whether you're a golfer, a tennis player, a basketball player, a football player. We're going to train you to be a best athlete possible. We did that. We got a lot of buy-in through our boys programs. Had all of our boys athletes working together in the summer, and those kids bought in. Like I said, we gained 3 basketball kids that really affected, how our level of play in football. They're great kids too, and we treated them, we treated them just we treated them well enough that they believed we weren't out there just for ourselves. We weren't out there just to, be better in football. We were out there for them, and they chose to be a part of that program. So we pushed them hard in the football program as well. Then from there, it just at Chisholm, it just blew up. That successful summer we had with the boys turned into the girls coaches asking if they could be a part of all what we were doing. So we kind of grew that culture to be school wide. We didn't want to be good at just basketball. We didn't want to be good at just golf. We wanted to be good at every single thing we did. And so we put that mindset into our kids and talked about it all the time. And we started having just tons of success. Pushed and made the playoffs in year 5. Um, Year 6, we went 9-2 in football. They went to the second round of the first. We went to the first round of the playoffs that year, and kind of got that monkey off their back. Then the next year, we went and made it to the second round of the playoffs. Um, with those same group of kids we knew we had coming that I spent time with when they were in the local little league football. We went out and watched games. Coaches showed up. We got high school kids to go show up and made sure that they knew we were there. We valued what they were doing out there and wanted them to be part of our program. So showed them some attention, showed them some love when they were younger, and just grew them into the high school. After that second round of the playoffs, we had that group of kids that was really special in the fact that they bought into everything we were saying. They competed hard in every sport. They trained hard, all summer long, all winter long, and they bought into every single aspect what we needed to do. They were great teammates. They treated everybody on the team as equals, and we went to the state semifinals that year and got beat by a team that was really, really good. A team that scored 77 points in the third quarter of the finals. We got beat by 3 touchdowns, so I felt like we were meant to be there at least. Yeah, we were meant to be in that conversation. And so that next year we lost those really good core group of kids that we thought were great leaders and all that. And it turns out the next year we had the same kind of kid. And if you go back into their middle school days, they wouldn't have nobody pinned them as that same kind of kid. So they grew into that by the consistency. We talked to them about being a part of that program and doing everything it took, and then buying into what the other kids that graduated, that kind of legacy that they left. They just carried it on, and then the next group just carried it on. Each one of those were different, and each of those teams were different in a way that we had to step back and address them and how we coach them every single year differently. Our expectations for them stayed the same, but then we had to readjust. Okay, well, we're not as good in this spot right now, so let's figure out a way to target that area and make that better. And then, in turn, it just kind of created that whole situation of success for them to, we just let them play, and made sure we took care of them every day. Um, didn't let we didn't really have a whole lot of discipline issues or anything like that, because it just was an expectation that you stepped in and you did what you were supposed to do, and you're going to get taken care of and loved by everybody around. So it was a pretty cool experience.
How were those later years when you really had it rolling? I feel like I've seen some coaches and experienced this once myself as a coach, where it's rolling, it's rolling, but it's not as fun. There's a pressure that kind of builds. Did you experience that at all?
Well, I mean, as far as not being as fun, no. I absolutely loved every single challenge
Cool.
of the next team. And there was an instance um, where entitlement started to kind of creep in, and they were kind of getting labeled as that as they were progressing through their middle school and high school career. They think they're just going to step out there and do what everybody else has done because that's who we are now, and it didn't work like that. So that for us, we were able to kind of step back and self-reflect. Okay, how are we going to approach these guys? Because they're different than the last group. Um, And so with them, I knew that they cared. I knew that if I was honest with them about how people are perceiving them and kind of how they're trying to be placed into this position of entitlement, I knew if I would be honest with them and just flat out call them out on it, that they would respond. And that's how I approached that situation with them. Set them down. I said, "Hey, here's what people are saying about you. I mean, do you really want somebody saying this about you? That you're entitled, that you don't, you just think you're going to get everything handed to you?" Um, and so it was pretty, I mean, it was pretty eye opening to them. I mean, they sat there, with those wide eyes and they're like, wow, we didn't really don't, it's hard for kids to see themselves like that. But I
Mhm.
think that honesty and being upfront with them and then kind of changing that expectation for them and their team with those older kids really changed the trajectory of that, how they were
Good.
made up the rest of the year.
Yeah,
Because it wasn't our most talented team. We had a few kids that were not as athletic as the years prior, but they ended up making the second round of the playoffs and getting beat by a team that, at our level is rarely you get a Division 1 kid, and we got beat by a team with 4 Division 1 kids on it, and
yeah.
had our chances to kind of take the lead in the fourth quarter and just didn't get it done. But
What
it was
you
it
yeah,
was
what you
just
just
sorry, go
sorry.
ahead. That's
What you just said made a lot of sense to me of I feel like especially male athletes can get typecast a lot of, "Oh, they're jerks and don't care what people think of them." I think if they have a coach or an adult figure in their life that they trust that speaks truth, I think most people care. "No, I don't wanna be a jerk. I don't wanna be
yeah,
seen as that," and they'll
absolutely.
adjust if it's approached well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I didn't know how well that was going to go because,
Mhm.
I mean, quite honestly, there was some entitlement there. I didn't fully believe all of it because I'd seen what they were doing every day for me in the weight room.
Yeah.
And then in our program, they'd never done that, but you could see it creeping in a little bit at times. And so, whether it be somebody in the school or whatever to make that comment, I was like, you know what, that it's not right. It's rubbing me wrong. And I know if I approach them and tell them honestly, it's going to rub them wrong too. And it's going to kind of flip the script for them.
So what came next after the run at that school?
Well, I decided that I was going to go into, tried to work myself out of education a little bit and do some home inspecting and just trying to alleviate my schedule for my kids. I've got a
Mm,
13 and a 9-year old, and they are really busy. They're active in every
yeah.
single sport, sometimes two different teams in the same sport in the same season. So I was running all over the place trying to chase them around and just, you know, uh, just like in college when people are trying to get you to go a different direction, it wasn't the right direction for me. And I had an opportunity. I made some connections at Tonkawa, and it's a great community, great school. We competed against them quite a bit when I was at Chisholm, and knew that it was a spot that had a community and a foundation that was really, really good. So I took the athletic director job there last year and didn't coach anything, just kind of wanted to do the athletic director duties and an assistant principal, and try to um, learn how this place worked. And every place is different. Every single community has their things that they value, the things that their processes they go through. Um, and so I'm a forward progressive thinker, and I like to think about how to make this thing better, how to fix situations. And I fell into Tonkawa and, fell in love with that, being able to do that, being able to be an influence on their kids, um, our kids. And there, like I said, every place is different. Where we have right now, we have, a population that they aren't scared to work hard, but they just don't know how to make the best of the situations with academics and just some older ideas that we're trying to get through to, a place that has a ton of potential.
So, transitioning a little bit, I mean, we connected through 3D coaching and the 3D Institute. Share a little bit about your background there and how you've utilized their framework.
Uh, I was approached a few times that the Oklahoma Coaches Association Coaches Clinic, and I listened to them about 3D, and I thought it was really tied into. Sorry, I just lost my thought there. It was tied into it's the Christianity part
Yeah.
of it.
NCA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Fellowship Christian Athlete.
FCA, and I kind of brushed it off. I didn't really want to dive into that part of anything. Just trying to stay straight with all the politics and all that. And
Mhm.
I had a coach, Coach Cobble, came by. He was with 3D and FCA and 3D tied into it. And he showed me, he's like, well, you can go this route or you can go this route. And I was like, okay, cool. And so I started just researching it, checking it out. And then I looked into it and saw the intro and stuff. I was like, wow, yeah, I mean, this is exactly what we're trying to do. And this gives me a chance to possibly have something I can hang my hat on. And so I went ahead and went through the course myself. At this time, I was athletic director, and to everything we were trying to do with every program, getting them to buy into, valuing every single kid out there, and being able to motivate kids in the right way. Um, so I went through the coursework, and I was like, wow, this is, whether you intuitively do some of the strategies that are involved in 3D or um, not, it gave me a solid foundation of what exactly I am and what exactly I want to be and what exactly I want our programs to look like. It touched all those things. It gave me resources for how to handle parents, because nobody's perfect in that aspect. Um, it, and quite frankly, I think it helps address a lot of issues for coaches
Mhm.
before they get into having issues with parents. And as soon as we started really hitting all those things, um, the buy-in from our parents and the community started growing immensely. When they, heard about some of the things that we were doing, as far as involving our parents, doing different things for dads in our football program, doing different things for moms of the football program, and involving them in that whole process, man, it like you can almost do no wrong as a coach when you start to get them to buy into to those
Yeah,
types
that's
of things.
exactly right. I
And three
sometimes
D, yeah,
I've
it gave us that foundation. It really
yeah,
did.
I joke with people of I'm sure I've said on this podcast sometime that even if you don't like kids, all you care about is winning. If you follow the blueprint, I think it's gonna help you win more. Now, I hope that's not why you're doing it, but
Yeah,
I just the community support it builds, how to motivate kids, I just think it's all right on.
it absolutely
Mm.
is. And like, what parent wouldn't want to be actively involved and understand that you love their kid and want to take care of them every single
Yeah.
day and you value what they're doing out there? I mean, you really can't lose with applying this type of strategy. I did have we, I made our coaches go through it at Chisholm. We had 16 coaches on staff, and well, I remember one of them came in. He's like, I kind of agree with some of this stuff, but it's really kind of soft. And I was like, oh yeah, why is it soft? I don't feel like I'm soft. And he's like, well, just the way they talk about taking care of kids. I'm like, whoa, hold up, this isn't exactly. I think you kind of twisted it the wrong way, because all this is doing is telling you or giving you that opportunity to engage with kids, understand kids, involve parents. And I said, I don't understand how it ever could be soft for anybody. And I said, our kids aren't soft. Our kids don't play soft. So I don't feel like that really fits the narrative of where you're
Mhm.
coming from there.
Yeah, give me a so react to this. It goes in. So we surveyed all our kids at Friends University, where I'm the athletic director. We surveyed all our athletes last year and asked them what motivates them to participate in their sport. And we had some of the comments of a lot of the comments of I love the game or I want to be a pro, stuff like that, that I think people expect.
Mm.
But a vast majority of the responses centered around relationships with others, especially teammates. That was the most reported answer was they were motivated by their relationships with teammates. Curious your reaction to that, and if that at your level is it the same? Kind of just kind of give me your thoughts.
Absolutely.
Mm,
There's no doubt about that. I mean, and that's the thing that you're trying to do as a coach is get that bond and that connection so that way, they're going to fight through whatever they need to fight through to make that happen because they
mm,
have connected with their teammates. If you don't have that connection, then you get a bunch of people out there just working for themselves. And, a team's never going to function properly with
mm,
that kind of attitude. And so you can have one or two of those that kind of tried to do that. But once you have that team set and they're how they, include everybody, they're bonding, you work hard on implementing strategies that help those things those attitudes of the selfishness and stuff like that they fade off
mhm.
and then they really start to do things that are pretty extraordinary. You get teams that quite honestly overachieve, which is as a coach that's all you can really if you're looking for success in that profession in that field. You take a team that's and does more than they're supposed to do or potentially supposed to do, then you've had a lot of success. I feel like so.
Oh, yeah. I I I feel like in my career, some of the best coaching jobs I've seen were teams that went 500, and they overperformed their talent level, had great chemistry, the coach did a great job, and yeah, I think I get what you're saying there.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have that connection, practice becomes a lot more fun.
Mhm.
Games become a lot more fun. It's a whole lot easier to stick your neck out there on the line and get the job done whenever, it means something like that.
Yeah, right on. One more topic I wanna jump into before we wrap up. We talk a lot on this podcast about Generation Z. And how have kids changed? How have they not? And our bias is my grandparents were saying my parents' generation didn't get it. I'm sure my parents were saying the same thing. So some of this is an age old discussion, but I think it had the generational changes has accelerated just due to social media, the interconnectivity of the world. But curious of this generation of kid that you're working at now. So the kids in your high schools right now, how do you think they've changed, and how do you think they're the same as past generations?
Mhm. I think the past generation, you tell them, go run through the brick wall, they're going to go run through the brick wall. I don't know if that's something that got lost in there's that amount of respect that people had for their parents or fear for their parents back in the
Yeah.
day. You just did what you were told to do because that's how you were raised to do it. And so then I think they're run through the wall because you tell them to. Now it's not. You're gonna have to explain it a little bit differently. You can still get them to run through the wall. It's just gonna take a different angle,
Mhm.
whether it be you know generating that motivation, or that buy-in to doing it for your teammates. What I found is if you explain to somebody now, I mean, you really break it down on why it's good for them to run through that brick wall, they'll do it,
Mhm.
every single time because they want to do right. They want to do what's good for themselves. They want to do what's good for their teammates, but sometimes they really don't understand why they're doing it. But if you
Mhm.
break it down and explain it to them, they'll still do it. Um, so those, that kind of do it no matter what you're told attitude, it's almost gone. But
Yeah.
it's a different way to do it now, and you just you know slow it down, break it down, explain it. Here's why we're doing it. Here's how it benefits you. Here's how it benefits your teammates, and they still run through the wall.
And
So that's
the way you explain that, I think it's a good thing. Probably better than
absolutely,
me and you who blindly trusted.
yeah. I mean, I was one of those, do it because that's the way you were told to do it.
Yeah,
Uh, Type of athletes when I grew up. And, I honestly, when I was going through my early coaching career, that's how I thought you were supposed to do it. And
me too.
it definitely changed and it changed fast, because not everyone was like that. And that's probably one of the harder things that I did have to realize was first off, not everybody's like that. They're not going to do everything you tell them to do just because you told them to do it. And they don't necessarily love the game as much as you love the game. And
Mhm.
so they're out there and they kind of want to play, but how do I get them to love the game? And that goes back to that, buying into the team structure and valuing them and all those other things. But and they still even though things have changed, things are, at their fingertips nonstop, they still want to do well in
Yes.
everything they're doing. Um, Sometimes it gets lost in them staring at their phone, but the kids are still inherently, they want to do right. They want to do things well. And so if you can break it down into, why they're doing it and value their time now, probably more so than anything. If you're out, just wasting time for 3 hours in practice, it's not going to go well with this
Yeah.
generation. You're going to have to break it down, maximize the time, throw every digital opportunity for them to learn that you can at them, and then they still respond the same way with the clear expectations. Valuing those kids and their teammates, and they still respond really well to it.
Yeah. Well said. All right, we're gonna wrap up. We have a rapid fire round we wrap up with. So you only have 30 seconds to answer each question, and then I'll cut you off unless you're really on one going well. So, first question: what is the book or books that you've given most as a gift, and why?
Gosh, I read several books, but I think the one is The Pack. It's a leadership book. I gave it to my seniors as a kind of a thing to get them stimulated into being better leaders. One of my football seasons. It's a really good, just kind of small way to organize, a pack, a structure for your team.
Mhm. Yeah, I've read it. I think that's a good book. How has a failure set you up for later success?
I think every single failure that I've had in my life, personally, professionally, whatever it is always set up for a success later. As coaches, you fail all the time. A practice doesn't go as well as you'd like it to go. How do you fix it? How do you move on? If you feel like whatever you've done offensively, defensively has not worked the prior year, you always step back and learn from it. So the failure gives you the opportunity to step back and make sure that you are, reflecting, learning, moving on, figuring out what's best for the next move.
Yeah, I think the sooner young coaches can learn that, the better. It's
Um,
something it's easy to run from it and pretend like it's not real.
yeah,
So
don't
what
be
is
too
your fa
proud.
yeah. What is your favorite podcast?
Well, I guess it's probably beyond coaching.
You're the
I
man.
don't, I don't, I don't listen to much podcasts. I have a 50-minute drive to and from work, and it generally revolves around, mostly thinking about um, figuring out what's best for kids. I mean, quite honestly, this is what runs through my brain all the time.
Mhm.
I'm just trying to think about, the school and the town and the community, and it's constantly just something that I spend my time doing. So I don't really listen to a whole lot of podcasts at all. So yeah, I'll probably check out Beyond Coaching though.
Good.
Mhm.
So I want you to take your current role, so not your coaching past on this question, but how do you define success in your work?
Right now, in the stage we're at, is when I see kids are enjoying being at school. Um, Smiles on their faces down the hallway. I walk by a classroom and I hear the teacher just really getting after it in there, and the kids are engaged. To me, right now, in this position I'm in, that's a massive success.
Nice. All right, last one. So in the past 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
I think that, in the world of we try to do every single thing, we do too much. And so I've started to cut back on the amount of things I'm trying to do. You know, you have to learn to delegate at times and step away from the job sometimes, and I've definitely did not do that early in my career. I was
Mhm.
full bore all the time. If it was midnight and I needed to go help a kid, get some stuff out of the lock, just every single thing that I would have to do, I never said no to work. And now I'm having to say no to work, and it feels pretty good to delegate some of those things out. So that's probably the biggest thing that I definitely have learned in the last 5 years.
Very good, very good. Cool. Well, this has been fun. Any final thoughts or anything you
No,
wanna
it's
put out there?
definitely a fun experience, and appreciate you having me.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot for taking the time and, yeah, admire the work you're doing down there.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care. Thank you for listening to another episode of Beyond Coaching. Beyond Coaching is a podcast developed and produced by the Impactful Coaching Project with the support of Friends University. The Impactful Coaching Project seeks to develop coaches that coach the whole person and is the thought leader in coaching the 21st century athlete. The Impactful Coaching Project produces training, information, and research to help coaches improve. To see more information, go to impactfulcoachingproject.substack.com. Thank you.